Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today, we're jumping into some ProRevenge. Our first story today comes to us from Zarina Blue. Shady landlord loses his fancy truck and just about everything else. Let's jump right in. Location: the Deep South, 2007 to 2008. My ex-husband and I have always gotten along very well, and we have, at the time of this story, 7 years old, a daughter. We have always lived near each other for convenience sake and have on occasion even lived in the same house after divorcing. So I was thrilled when the people across the street from him sold their place, and apparently it was going to be for rent. I had known the folks across the street, nice people, and had even been in the house a time or two. So when I showed up with my other half to look the place over, I kinda knew what we would be getting. The landlord was working on the house when we pulled up. We had gone out to eat before this, and so I know he was unaware he was talking to someone who knew the people who had lived there and been in the house. His big old dually was in the drive with his company name stenciled on it. He meets us in the garage and immediately starts lying. He told me this was his family home and he was fixing it up, but there were a lot of memories there and his kids had grown up in that house. I realized he was adding value. I kept my mouth shut because it was right across the street from my ex-husband and it was literally the bus stop for the school for my daughter. He continued to lie and I kinda tuned him out. The place was a little worse for wear, dirty, gross carpet, chipped paint. I made a comment on a broken light switch and he told me he was having a cleaning crew come through and clean up the place and having everything painted and the carpet redone. The price was a little high, but once again, I really wanted it and it wasn't nightmare high, just $200 over what I was expecting. I had a small Australian Shepherd, so first month's rent, last month's rent, and pet deposit, $12.50 for each one. Ouch. So about 2 weeks later, it was move-in day. I should have known something was up when the key was left in a combo box on the door. We had paid through a service, so he had the money, and we had the key and a mess. He had done literally nothing except replace a set of rotted outdoor steps that he probably had to for liability purposes. We dragged out the digital camera and started taking pictures. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a partial basement. We took over 1,100 pictures. Here are some highlights. Ketchup smeared on the kitchen walls and floor. Nothing in there had been cleaned. The fridge was awful. Had what smelled like hair gel rubbed into it in the dining room and outside the front bathroom door. Fireplace literally had soot covering all of it and up to the ceiling. The reason for all the non-working lights became apparent at that point. He kept it dim for showings. Garage full of trash. Partial basement which we hadn't seen because that was where he had a big saw set up and wasn't really a selling point for us. Mold. All the mold. So I called him up and basically said, "What the hell?" And he replied that money and keys had already exchanged hands, and if I had a problem, I needed to put in a maintenance request. He said, "I don't remember it being that bad. Sounds like you made a mess moving in." Okay, so now I knew exactly how crappy of a person I am dealing with. We put in a maintenance request about the mold, went out and bought all the bleach, other cleaning supplies, and a carpet cleaner. I am a military brat who lived in base housing. I know how to clean, and we got to work. It took 2 days of 4 adults. My ex and a friend came over to help to get the place passable. We even changed out the blinds. They were broken and dangerous. During this, landlord comes over to look at the mold, and I kid you not, grabs a roll of my paper towels and my bleach spray and starts wiping the mold off the walls. He had just walked into the garage, grabbed some cleaning stuff I had down in the garage, and I found him about halfway through his cleaning job. That's all he did. Fast forward 3 months, time for an inspection. Okay, he tells me he will be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. He shows up at 6:30 p.m., demands to be let in. I let him in and he starts taking pictures of dishes in the sink. Dinner was still on the table and lecturing me about cleaning up when I cook. So in front of him, I pulled out my digital camera and took one of him taking a pic of dishes for dinner with dinner still on the table and a timestamp on the photo. Butthole. He went to go through the drawers in my bedroom. I laughed at him. Didn't hear from him again till move out time. If you thought I was staying there longer than a year, you are crazier than I was when I rented that place. He sent me a move out checklist, professional steam cleaning and white glove clean of the entire house, new pine straw for landscaping. All rooms needed to be repainted wheat. When we moved in, the bathroom was literally turquoise. So we got to work, steam cleaned, white glove clean, etc., then took another 1,000 pictures. He walks through and is pissed. He even ran a white rag on top of the ceiling fan. He snatched the keys out of my hand and told me to expect to hear from him in 10 days about the deposit. That doesn't sound good. 2 weeks later, I get a bill for $3,750. For more professional steam cleaning, HVAC cleanout. Apparently we didn't use the right brand of wheat. Oh yes we did. 2 things I haven't disclosed. I have a bad habit of recording bad people just to cover my butt, and my mom is a landlord in the next state. She is the good kind, who never was able to make money at it. If people told her they couldn't afford to pay her because they needed the money to feed their children, well, my mom usually gave them money. So glad she got out. But my mom was very familiar with the laws and had looked a few things up about my landlord. So I grabbed my little recorder and called him. He owns a real estate business. His side is rental stuff, and his wife's and grown daughters bought and sold houses. His oldest daughter picks up and transfers me to him. It gets ugly fast, and he tells me that I must have let my Australian Shepherd pee in the vent grates, what the hell, and that the way I take care of my daughter would be very interesting to CPS. He can help me work out a payment plan, but pretty soon we would be getting into collections territory. At one point, he actually says that all tenants are liars. Nice. About 20 minutes of being threatened. I call my mom back. To be honest, I am pretty darn shook up. CPS? For what? So my mom tells me to pretend like I am playing along and ask for an itemized receipt. Tell him your mom is going to cover it, and tell him your mom needs it before turning over the money. I had one 10 minutes after I asked, on my end. The professional steam cleaner was a friend of mine who had a business and gave me a discount. HVAC was a scam. The company he listed belonged to his brother-in-law, was defunct, and out of another state. Since I had before, after, and his new listing pictures, I knew he hadn't hired anyone to do HVAC cleaning. The vents were painted to the wall in all the pics. We saved our paint receipts, and I actually had pics of us painting. You can see the right brand and color clear as day. I called his business and told his daughter that I would be taking him to court. She obviously was unaware of what a crap her father was, because when I told her, no one threatens my little girl, she didn't know what I was talking about. So I put her on speakerphone and played a recording of her dad threatening to have CPS come visit if I didn't pay up, and she made it most of the way through before asking me to turn it off. And then she put me on hold to get her mom, his wife. She tried to reason with me, and I backed up the tape to the part where he talks about what happens to kids in the foster system and played it. She told me they would get back to me. They actually did. The mom and eldest called me on speakerphone and apologized. They told me how the business was divided and how they normally don't deal with rental stuff. I told them it was fine, but I was still taking him to court. Time for court. We ended up in arbitration. I showed up with 2 laptops for before and after, proof of his fake HVAC crap, a stack of literal receipts, him committing a crime by threatening to falsely call CPS, and a pretty good working knowledge of renter law in that state. At one point, the arbitrator asked me if I was a paralegal. He had a picture of dirty dishes and stories about how I lived like a pig. I pulled up the pic of the same sink of dishes with the dinner in the foreground, time and date stamp. The arbitrator actually asked, "Did you expect her to do the dishes before she ate her dinner?" Even the woman taking notes for the arbitrator was grossed out when I showed them the ketchup and the basement mold pics. Did you know that you can get 3 times what you ask for in a rental dispute, depending on your state? Yeah, you can. I did. The arbitrator used the word appalling when describing the landlord's behavior. When I went out in the hallway afterwards, there was a young couple there asking the clerk if landlord was available yet. Apparently, they were waiting for their turn at arbitration. I asked them if their case was HVAC related. Sure enough, it was. I pulled out all the paperwork I had about it and handed it to them with my number. Actually got several calls from his other tenants. He had been running that scam a while, and these kids I had handed the paper to had looked up every house on the landlord's website and went door to door warning them. Smart, I hadn't thought of that. Meanwhile, my mother was filing a complaint with everyone she could think of because he had his business listed as a suite, which turned out to be a P.O. box. Huge no-no. Your business must be a location that can be served by the courts. A year later, I saw a truck with his logo drive past, but it wasn't the dually, it was an older F-150. So I looked him up in the county clerk's records. Well, first, it seems he got divorced and cleaned out. The house, big truck, everything went to her. Then she sued him for the business. He got to keep the name and she took everything else. I looked up the realty website using her maiden name to search. Her and the eldest daughter were using her maiden name and had a whole new webpage and setup. Also, my mom got notice that her complaint was being addressed and he had his license suspended and a huge fine to get reinstated. My mom kept an eye on the records for home deeds in the area, and all but 2 of his properties were sold at auction. So let's sum up. He had to pay me 3 times what I asked for, lost his big money-making scam, lost his wife, lost his houses, lost his truck, lost his license for a while. No regrets. The 2 things I really get out of this story is that if you're renting a property, you need to take a ton of photos. Photos before you actually move in, photos when you're in the place, and photos when you move out. Also, if you're renting, it really helps to know what the Landlord-Tenant Act for your area says. If you spend even the slightest bit of time reading up on the Landlord-Tenant Act for your area, you'll probably know more about it than your landlord does. That'll help you out if a situation like this ever comes up. OP, thanks for the story. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our second story today comes to us from NZ Devon. Not pay me for the website I built? Say goodbye to your business, house, and reputation. Let's jump right in. This happened early 2000s. I used to be a freelance front-end dev and a search engine optimization guru. Back then, getting on the front page of Google was pretty simple. Link exchanging was popular but risky. I never did that, but I did have a single website that had serious PageRank clout due to it being linked as a trusted source directly from one of the top and most trusted websites in the world. I would use this website for the best clients to get their PageRank and search engine position, leapfrogging others, older and more trusted websites. One day, I was approached by someone I'll call Bob. Now, Bob sold travel packages. He needed to revamp his basic existing website with a complex website built with pretty tricky back-end coding. I could do the front end, but I had to hire a back-end dev to build the functionality. Bob had a major launch in a month's time and it had to be ready. I usually ask for 25% deposit upfront, but Bob said no. He was stung by the last dev and wasn't going to lose any more money. Now, from the moment I met Bob, my gut was telling me this was going to end badly. The problem was, I needed the money, and it was worth quite a lot of money for me and the dev. I skipped the deposit on the promise he paid in full before it went on his server. Bob agreed. For an entire month we worked day and sometimes all night to get this done in his time frame. With a day to spare, we had it done, and I'd never been so proud of what we had achieved. I was honestly excited to show Bob. The next day, I sent the link to my test server and he phoned me to discuss it. Bob said everything looked good, but he was worried his server's PHP version may be too old to run it. I assured him it would, but he said he was too scared it won't and we would scrub our hands of it. We went backwards and forwards, but he was insistent the site has to be uploaded and tested on his server before he parts with a penny. I chatted to my dev. He didn't like it either, but agreed we would upload our work onto his server. Bob gave me the FTP details and server login, and I uploaded the site. I told him it was live, and then nothing. I sent several emails and then phone calls. The emails went unanswered, and the phone went to voicemail. Sensing a major problem, I rushed to my computer, fired up my FTP program to delete our work on his server, and access denied. He had locked us out, and the following day, he went live with our work. For several days, I tried phoning until one morning, he answered the phone and said, "Listen, I'm not ever going to pay you, and there is nothing you can do about it. Then Bob hung up. Rage was a good word for my feelings. I was shaking while I still held the phone in my hand. For the next hour, my range of expletives was growing in complexity. As I sat there figuring out what to do, it hit me. Revenge will be mine. I registered a new domain name, which was Bob's travel domain name plus sucks at the end. If Bob's website was called bobstravel.com, I had purchased bobstravelsucks.com. I uploaded our work, basically an exact mirror of his live website, onto my new domain. I used my all-powerful mega page rank domain to link to my new sucks domain. Within a month, my website jumped above his website in Google for every conceivable search phrase you would use for the packages he sold. No matter what you typed in, my site was the first result and his was always below mine. During that month, I created a second website, which was Bob's full name with sucks at the end. On this second website, I posted what happened, screenshots of his emails, and warning everyone what a con man he is. Bob had a somewhat unusual first and last name. Again, within a month, my website was above his own personal website. I then forgot all about it. About 4 months later, I get a cease and desist email from a solicitor's firm. A quick Google showed the solicitor's firm was made up and didn't exist. I replied back with, "I'm not ever going to take them down, and there is nothing you can do about it." Every now and then, I'd get emails from people he had conned by taking their money for a travel package, but never booking their package. I'd put those on both of my websites, making sure those juicy, important keywords, his full name and company name, were spread across each negative review. A few more months pass, and I get an anonymous email linking to a new domain called My Name Sucks. I'm told to remove my two websites, and he will remove this new one. A quick search, and what do you know? It isn't even on Google. No one could find it. I reply back for a second time with his comment to me. As each month passes, I'm getting more and more people emailing me saying they've been ripped off. I keep adding them to my website. Turns out the travel agency world is well regulated, and they started an investigation into Bob's company using my website as their main tool. I get a call from Bob. Bob is not a happy Bob. In fact, Bob is more of a desperate Bob. Looking at this text now, I know you can almost hear the despair and resentment in Bob's voice. Bob pleads and literally begs me to pull the sites down. Not only is he being investigated by the Travel Agency Association, but he had some very important friends that didn't appreciate the bad press he was causing in their circles. He offers to pay me the money he owed. Nothing more, just what he owed. For the third time, and with a massive smile on my face, I say, "Listen, I'm not ever taking them down, and there is nothing you can do about it." Roll on a few months, and I discover his travel company has been removed from all travel associations. No matter what you typed into Google, my website outranked his, and all the bad reviews on my site were the first thing his potential customers would see. I crippled his business so badly, it went bust. During the collapse, one of his ex-employees contacted me and told me how hard he had worked to get my websites off the first page. He had registered dozens and dozens of other domains in the hopes some would jump ahead. Little did he know only the top dozen websites in the world could jump it. Apparently, his property was tied into loans on the failing business, and he lost his house too. It took me just about a year to turn his business from a cash cow to a dead cow. Motto of the story: if you ever think to mess with a dev, don't. See, this is what ProRevenge is all about, and I wish more stories would be like this. They actually use their professional skills and professional business to execute their ProRevenge. Now that being said, OP actually made a really horrible decision uploading the site to the client server without payment in the first place. I mean, what did you really expect was going to happen in that case? A recommendation I'd have, if somebody is really skeptical and doesn't want to pay you up front, go through an escrow service. Tell the client that you're not going to do the work unless they pay the money to the escrow service first, and then, once it's complete and they're happy with what you've done, then the escrow service can release the money and everybody's happy. Just a thought, but I've never been in that industry, so take it with a grain of salt. Check out both OPs at the links in the description down below. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.